Leadership Connection Forum. Heart to Heart Leadership Akron started the series about 3 weeks ago. This is our third opportunity to connect, really as a way just to support one another during these unprecedented times, to bring community leaders together to share ways to leverage our strengths as leaders and organizations to continue to serve each other and the community. So we're really glad you can join us this morning for our conversation. We're really thrilled to have Perry Clark with us this morning. And we're going to try a different format today if you've been with us the last 2 weeks. If you look at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, you'll see that there's a chat option. So if you want to ask some questions to Perry during our conversation this morning, just submit a question through that chat option, and we'll try to keep an eye on those, and we'll tee those questions up to Perry this morning. So just wanted to point that out. Jeremy, I'll hand it over to you to introduce Perry this morning.
Excellent. Thank you, Barry. And thank you again, everyone, for joining with us today. We will, again, be offering a short breakout session as well at the end of our time around 11:30 today, just for a few minutes to kind of connect with each other on a deeper level, share a little bit about what resonated with you from what you hear from Perry and perhaps from others today through their questions. And so, yeah, I have the distinct honor of introducing Perry Clark this morning. Perry is the founder and executive director of Truly Reaching You Ministries, also known as TRI. And he's here to discuss the importance of leading with perseverance today. And so just a little bit of background on TRI. TRI provides a healthy support system and invaluable employment training for those willing to surrender old lifestyles and to put in the work needed to gain self-respect and a renewed outlook on life. They say they do this by helping those in re-entry to renew, rebuild, and reconnect. And we know that many of us right now are having to kind of take a longer view of how this current pandemic will impact our leadership and the organizations and community where we lead. Perry, having known you personally, I think since the founding of Truly Reaching You, I know you've been kind of taking that long view of transformation for 20 years now with Truly Reaching You. Congratulations on a professional level, but even longer on a personal level. And so we would like to invite you this morning to begin by sharing with us a bit about your personal story of perseverance and some specific examples of how you have arrived where you are today. So we invite you to open us up with some of your story, and thank you again for being here today.
Thank you there, Jeremy. Yes, I believe we met right at within a couple of years of me believing how can I be a help to those who I understand where they're coming from. And so a little bit about me, born and raised in Akron, graduated Garfield High School. And so we look back nearly 23 years ago. I come back to the community, the city of Akron, after 10 years of incarceration. So this would probably be the first time you hear me say that word, incarceration or prison, because we use the word on the inside. So if you hear the word on the inside, meaning, then I'm talking about prison. Okay, so 23 years ago, I come back to prison. What led me to prison is my lifestyle choices I made, substance abuse addiction, from cocaine to opiates. And today I can say that after 10 years on the inside, it could be 33 years since I haven't used any substance of any kind, because I was looking for a transformation of change in my life. So during that 10 years, I had to really take a look at myself. Take a look at all the pain that I really brought to my mom and dad, who for so many years come to realize that I was living a double lifestyle, that they was clueless that I had any type of addiction. And during them 10 years, I really had to say how challenging it is for me to make this change. And what caused me to be around 2,500 other men who had the same color clothes I had on, who went to child where I went to child, who was on lockdown, and all them things come with being on the inside. So I started to reflect. Upon that reflection, I came to discover that I wasn't created to have someone else turn a key for me. I didn't need to have the guards turn a key or to tell me when I could go to the restroom. And through that, where do that start? And I come to a conclusion. It started within myself. Who is I'm gonna surrender to, because I have done this my way, even though as a child raised in a Christian home, when I got out, I got to turn it to my way and do it the way I wanted to do it. And so I had to surrender, reflect upon my upbringing. My dad had worked 43 years in BF Goodrich and asked me, I could get you a job there, but you have an offer to go to school. And I wish you would go to school. And I took that offer and went to University of Oregon on a scholarship, only to get out there to continue the same lifestyle of substance abuse addiction. And then after being there for 9 years, and not completing school because I was kicked off the team for substance abuse addiction. And so I come back to Ohio. I stayed out there 6 years and I come back to Ohio, and that lifestyle continued on, which caused me to be on the inside. And from on the inside, I going back to having to surrender my lifestyle. And in surrendering that, it was unto Jesus, my faith, and realizing that I had a purpose in life, and that purpose wasn't to be on the inside. That purpose wasn't to be to continue the lifestyle that brought pain to my parents, took me away from my children at a young age. That pain was all the people who believed in me that didn't know I had a second lifestyle of a substance abuse addiction. It brought pain to them. So I realized that I need to make a change, and that change comes through him. And through that change, I realized that I had many men on the inside turning to me, asking me how was I doing and how come I'm always smiling in the morning. And I would have the opportunity to share with them, I'm smiling in the morning because we have something to be thankful for. He woke us up this morning. They didn't rush you or me out of here to the hospital. They didn't shackle us up and take us through them doors on a gurney this morning. So we have something to be thankful for. That's why I'm smiling, because I relive. And I always will remember somebody's situation is worse than yours and mine. But right now we could be appreciative of this situation we have today. So coming back, my life story is coming back, being released in June 28th, 1997. The reason I say nearly 23 years of being on this side. I was coming back to the community, and there's 3 men who I would see regularly who left me there on the inside and came back 3 times. 2 of them. And so when I realized I was out and been out a year, how could I be a help to those who in the community who I understood where they was coming from? And that's how Truly Reaching You was formed. I only wanted to help 3 men, these 3 men, and I offer them jobs because I had become working for myself as a general contractor doing construction, and with the blessing of purchasing a couple of homes to rehab, to re-put back on the market. And from that, Truly Reaching You was formed and helping them 3 men. To date, 2 of them 3 men I'm still in contact with, and they are homeowners in our community. So for the past 20 years, I've been stuck helping men, but it's been a good stuck. I've been stuck helping men, and how do I help them transition back in the community from where they have come from? So I understood where they was coming from. I understood the pain they have. What I didn't know and realized that they had never had a job and they had no work ethic, because they always stood on the corner and did what they did to sell drugs to survive, which we look at coming into a survival mode when one come back to the community if you don't have any help. For me, coming back to the community, I had loving friends who I had broke their heart, but I also had a work ethic because I always had a skill as a finished carpenter. So I knew about work, where many never had that opportunity. I got that work ethic from my dad, who taught me when I was younger that you have to work to eat, to feed yourself. So that's the gist of how Truly Reaching You got started. And today we help men reenter back into the community, who's coming back to the community from incarceration. And today we also, with the opiates the last 3 years, have really changed. We help those who's coming out of treatment centers, IBH, Raymar, and other treatment centers around our county that we have. Providing housing, employment training skills in the construction, commercial cleaning, and landscaping and lawn care, providing a service to teach them how to work. We have a motto of giving a hand up, not a hand out. And so we help men, and through that, we provide housing to that. And the average stay in the housing is a year for the men. And we currently have housing 22 men, and we have 28 beds and 7 houses. So that's the gist of my story and why I do what I do.
Perry, thank you so much for sharing your own personal story and your journey. It takes a lot of courage just to be as open and honest and transparent like you were. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Perry, I know Leadership Akron's offices are benefited from the work that you and your men did. So a personal thanks from all of us for the great work that you do with the people you're helping reintegrate. And we certainly benefited from that. Right now, we're hearing about a lot of people being released from prison early because of what's going on with the pandemic. And is that impacting the work that you're doing, or with any of the people you're working with? Or is there anything you can share with us just to be more empathetic of some of those individuals who may be coming back into the community either earlier than expected? Just any perspective you could share with us?
Yeah, so I always, Barry, because even though it's been 23 years ago, many days it don't seem like it. And since we've been in this pandemic, it hasn't seemed like it. And so I try to always reflect when I was there and what took place. And last night yesterday I had 3 calls from institutions talking to men who's going to be released within the next 14 months. None of them will be a part of this because of their charge. And so when I look at it, the first thing I think was, I think governors did a wonderful job, and we're seeking to follow all the protocols he have placed on us. But the first thing I thought about was the officers should have been stayed at home, because only when the men on the inside can't go nowhere. The ladies on the inside can't go nowhere, but the officers could bring it in. So outside of work, I thought they should be staying at home. And fortunately, at one of the institutions we have a lot of men come through, which is Marion, they had an officer who was diagnosed with the virus, and now there's been 3 inmates diagnosed with that virus. So some of the things, it hasn't been an impact to us because we had to make the decision when the stay at home, that we would only not take no one off the streets who had been released from Oriana House or who may have come home to prison from being on the inside, but only been out a week or 3 days. Because we do an interview process where I go in, and naturally I haven't been going in. So we have made a decision that we will only take those if the institution called and we pick them up, which is our normal procedure. We pick them up. But we haven't had that. We picked up one Saturday and one last Thursday. But we had 3 walk off the streets that we had to turn away because we don't know where they say they had just come home, and we didn't get them from an institution. So we would not bring them into our program and provide them in housing with the other men, even though we have 5 beds open. Then I think about with that, where are they releasing them early? It builds up the homeless population. These are nonviolent offenders. So I think of nonviolent offenders, none of them is sex, they will not release violent offenders or sex offenders. But I look at it a little different. A sex offender who may have been released 10 years ago, but he's back in prison because he had no change of address. So he will be released because he's not in there for the crime he served that time. He's in there for a new charge of not registering. So they release him, and he didn't have no place to go from the beginning. That's why he's back on the inside. So, I think about, so it increased the our homeless population in all communities. It gives the parole officers and the probation officers much more work because many of them, they're not going to know where to find them at. And I think they do they have a place to live? Going back to family, do they have a family where they could be acceptable? And is it a healthy situation where that family member they're going to? I reflect upon that because myself, when I came back, because I had a substance abuse issue at one time and I hadn't used for 10 years, I would not go around family members who like to have a glass of wine. I'm not against it, but I didn't want to put myself in that situation, environment, because who knows what happened. I can handle it today because it's been 23 years and my heart is truly made up and changed because of Jesus.
Great. Thanks for sharing that perspective with us, Perry. Just no one has a better view of that than you do, and it's not just prisoners being released, but just the broader impact in the community and families and others. So thank you, Jeremy. Susan, is there something you'd like to tee up for Perry?
All right. Well, I think, Perry, one thing I was thinking about, and I know several folks are asking about just ways people can support your work, which I think we'll get to in just a minute here. But kind of taking this idea of perseverance being being defined as kind of persistence in doing something despite the difficulty or even the delay in achieving success, and taking that long view in leadership, and even right now, many of us are perhaps scrambling to make immediate adjustments and changes, but trying to also think about the long view and the impact that things are having. For you, when you think about taking the long view of transformation with those you're working with, what does that look like right now? How are you maybe even changing metrics of success or some of those things?
Yeah, well, one of the things is taking a long view is so critical. And my first thing is going back to the inside, where I had to learn to be still. And that's one of the things we share with the men, especially during this time, more critical of being still, that they have to be still. And so we have had multiple meetings, more meetings than ever, with staff and leadership to a knowledge of being still and what it takes for us to be able to move forward and being a help to the men, not only to the men, but to ourselves. I think one of the biggest things we're learning in the past 3 weeks, if this had not happened, what I had all the time that I have had to have staff meetings and share with what critical and thinking about critical situations and seriousness of this because of the first responders who's out there, the nurses, the first responders, the doctors, and all what they going through. And so we have had lots of talk about that and have to change things on because we are centric. We falls under numerous categories on that and getting phone calls the morning the governor, Monday morning after the governor made that announcement, getting telephone calls from the mental health department from Lori Chris, who I personally knows, calling me and saying, Perry, you know how critical it is for you to keep men working, come home to the community, keep them not working, but active, because if they get too much idle time, they'll fall. I said, I totally get it. And we're working on that. So just being encouraging, getting calls from her, being encouraging to continue on and helping those. So from a broader perspective, we talk about being still, how this is where I got. When I look at some of the challenges for the long run of the challenges, I stated I only wanted to do this to help 3 men, okay? And helping 3 men, the first 9 years, 9.5 years, with the blessing of my wife, who have retired on January 31st of this year, with the blessing of her, she said, I think you need to quit doing construction and just focus on helping men. And so the first 9 years, we never asked anyone for help. We personally, with her blessing, use our own financing. And our first 3 houses, we were the owners of. We purchased them 3 homes to help men who understood where they was coming from, to be able to give them a hand out and let them know that they could be a success in our community. So when I think of a leader and the challenges, I think of an empowerment for leadership, empowerment, because I was in a place that I could lead someone else who could lead somebody else. And what I mean is me sharing empowerment to them and believing in them, they could do it to the next person. And that's how we have been around for 20 plus years now. And the, so the status of that, when I think of success through that, how do we watch a man have sustainability and moving forward? When he leave us, he have his own place. He have a saving account. He have employment, where we have had companies come along. And we have 3 companies. I pick up a phone and they hire. Now, it haven't taken place in the last 3 weeks. I haven't picked up the phone because I want to keep them all safe. No one is looking for employment. Let's just keep them safe so they can move forward. But to watch men move forward like that.
Excellent.
Okay. Perry, so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that people have given us from the chat.
Yes.
Side of it. So first of all, can you tell us, other than your personal epiphany, was there a certain event that helped to change you when you were on the inside?
Yes. My first 3 years, I walked around with my hands in my pocket on the inside, and I was walking across the yard going to a Bible study, and some guys from Akron and Cleveland was standing in this corner, and they was laughing. Oh, he got his hands out of his pockets. I didn't realize that my hand was out my pockets because I kept my hands in my pocket because I had a problem with putting my hands on people. If for what they may have say, or not having, for stupid reasons, not having their shoes tied up, pants drooping, I just had a problem. And I watched when them guys laughed at me, he got his hands out of his pocket. I said I could do this. That was a turning point for me. I can do this. I don't have to put my hands. I can make a change. That was a turning point for me. That was one, because I had put my hands on people and I shouldn't have. And I had to ask for forgiveness, you know. Despite what you did, I felt you wronged me. That's a place that sometimes we take for, it's much different than what's on TV. Let me say that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, Perry. And then somebody else asked the question about, for you personally, what was the hardest obstacle that you had to overcome?
So that's a two-way question, Susan. The one was me keeping my hands in my pocket for the first 3 years. The other one was when starting Truly Reaching You. The obstacle was, as a man of color, doing nonprofit work, never been a nonprofit work, had 3 different institutions within the community after 7 years of doing this saying, give me a plan and we want to support you. I put a plan together, take it to them, and I get no help. But I was still persistent in saying, people need help who's coming back to the community. So I kept the work going with the blessing, once again, of my wife. And so that was the biggest challenge. So then we speeded up, and that challenge started to change when I meet 2.5 years later. I meet a president of a foundation. I meet with him once a year. I seek out to meet with him once a year, and I share my story. And that was Mr. Rob Briggs. And I shared my story with him. And 2 weeks later, he called me, his assistant called me. Lisa said, I want to have lunch with him. And I said, what do you want to have lunch with me about? And she said, he wanted to know more of your story. And he took me to lunch, and I shared my story. And once a year, I make a point to meet with him. And from there, he just talked to me, shared some things I heard. And it started to change that. But if I hadn't got discouraged and say, you know what, nobody don't want to help me, so I'm not going to do this, we would never have heard of Truly Reaching You if I had said that 7 years ago. But with the blessing, I have to say it, y'all haven't heard me say it, and I have to say it, the blessing of my wife. I mean, Stan, you could take money that you saved for retirement and help men. I was used to taking from men, not helping them, but giving back to the community, watching the community change. And there's another point to that continued that on. And I need to say this, because as we was making changes and moving forward, the Urban League was moving. And to actually have the help to say, can you bring us manpower? Because it was a sense to give the other men hope. They was moving from their old building to the new location, and we went down and put in over 700 hours. But it gave the men a sense of hope that other people in the community cared about them. And I still have men talk about that I meet with, and I believe they've been moving 7, 8 years now in that building. You know, so it's the things that we do to give men hope. Then we go to Leadership Akron. 2014, Robert DeJeanette said, you need to sign up. I ain't got time for that, I'm too busy. And the greatest thing that happened, I applied for Leadership Akron. And I got a lot of, after that class, the greatest class of all to get it done. I got a lot of help and met people to sit down who gave me some wise counseling. And I still get there, and I still get wise counseling. And it's just been awesome. And if I hadn't went to Leadership Akron and the coaching I get from my wonderful friend who's on the screen, and the Phil Maynards and the Roger Reeds who just sat down with me not asking them for no funding, but just this is what I do in the help. So there's been challenges, but through persistence of saying, you know what, it's not about me, it's about the man. And every man come to our program, we tell them, once we accept them in the program, it's not about you, it's about the man who come in after you. You do what's right, you put us in a better position to help the man who come in after you. I hope I answered your question without.
Thank you so much, Perry.
Perry, you are a man of perseverance, and you give others hope. And I know all of us who know you personally, you're a blessing to each of us. So just thank you for what you do for others and for our community. What can we do to help you and help Truly Reaching You? What can you just share some thoughts of what can we do to support you?
So one of the things I will share, I think, first of all, no matter what faith you are, continue to pray for us and Truly Reaching You for safety and health. The other thing, we're in our second year of a capital campaign. And we was donated a building by the county. And so with that capital campaign, it was to rehab this warehouse space to put everything in offices under one hub. And so we're currently continue to do that and work towards that. So, and to buy vehicles, because we have 3 15-seat passenger vans, but during this time, we only driving 3 men. We was already short of vehicles, and we only transport 3 people in one 15-seat passenger to try to keep that social distance as much as possible. And we all wearing the mask. So that's the biggest thing we're doing is, when I think about it, is and to share with others who Truly Reaching You is. What you know, many of you did not know what we do, but you hear much more, you know more than you knew before. And so you can share with others, your neighbors, your family, of what we are doing here in the community to help those who are coming back to the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you so much, Perry. That concludes our 30 minutes with you. I think we could have done 2 hours of this and
Yes.
just continue to be inspired by you and to hear more of your story. So again, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate you and what you're doing. Thanks to all of you who have joined us.
Yes.
We're going to go